Interestingly, in product development, there's a concept called design for manufacturing. And there are manufacturing engineers, and their job is to look at the product and say, if you design it this way, you'll shave lots of money off on the manufacturing process.
Yes.
And so that's a great point. If you have those conversations, like, don't wait until I get sheetrock up to put shade pockets in, right? I mean, it's that type of thing that
I mean, look, like, you're all in the sales business. I mean, if you can turn around and say, here's going to be your ROI, because I think sometimes, like, you hear the word technology and you're like, expensive, it's going to be expensive. But then you're like, look, and this is what Sean was saying to me. He's like, you're going to make an investment, but in the long run, you don't have to rip down walls again and put things back up or change things in your lighting and everything else. So I think that, again, like, the beginning would be super helpful.
All right.
Oh, Greg's still on the screen.
Yeah. Could you get the slide deck up, please? Thank you. We like Greg.
Yeah, sorry, I think you've already covered a lot of this stuff. But I think the important thing here is that, and you'll see on the next slide too, that there's just opportunity for problems and cost overruns by not having this conversation earlier, right? So having to change things, move things, and you've done things outside of the technology scope that have changed along the way. And it's the nature of construction. You decided you didn't want the spiral staircase, and now it's a bar. I know that happens along the way.
I think that was a good choice.
I think so. Everybody needs a bar, more so than a staircase. But those things happen along the course of the project. But generally speaking, I think that, to Joe's point a second ago, you don't want to be tearing down framing and drywall to add shade pockets. You decided you want to shade late in the game. Mm-hmm. So this is the integrator experience, and this is our side of it. And this is where there's some frustration here too. And I think that everybody has one frustration in common, everyone except for the homeowner, in that we all have a vested interest in the project. We all want to do what we do best. We all want to make money from what we're doing. But there's other people that impact our ability to do that. And you just mentioned getting the builder into the conversation early. The reason the builder is not usually there early is because they haven't been selected, because they haven't seen the pricing yet, right? And they don't want to bring you to the party yet because you might be the most expensive guy and your competitor might be cheaper and they might want to hire them. And the same thing goes for the integrator. And the integrator becomes sort of a bid experience also, where it's a little bit different with you, Sarah, but in a lot of cases, I bring a nice idea to the table and the client says, this is great, and then they shop it to 3 other companies to see what their ideas were. And maybe it's the same proposal with a different price on it. Maybe it's a whole different design from someone else. And that just creates another layer of confusion there. And then, Vince, you're faced with, well, you haven't picked the builder and you haven't picked an integrator, so I don't really know what to do yet. Or who I'm working with on this project, and everything comes to not really necessarily a screeching halt. But now Greg's faced with, well, how much of this, once I get the job, how much can I actually proceed with? Like, how many things should I build without knowing what the lighting design or the lighting plan is going to be? Do I frame this ceiling around this lighting plan or the other guy's lighting plan, because I haven't picked one yet? Do I design for shade pockets? And I'm sitting on the sidelines waiting for someone to say, we trust you and we want to hire you and go, before I can give any real feedback and say, not just this is what we think you should do, but this is what we're actually doing. And I think you probably experienced the same things, and you probably experienced that during this process. You had a bid from a lighting showroom for the fixtures. It was just a spreadsheet with 138
I had no idea. I was like, what is this? What does this even mean? I think the other thing too is just, I'm in the consultant business, so I understand sometimes that's a hard sell to people. Like, you're going to bring someone else in, and I hired you, Vince, and I've hired you, Greg. Like, why can't you guys just make these decisions for me? That's what I'm saying too, from like the death of 1,000 cuts. But it really is so important and so beneficial to have the expertise. And that's my experience now, is that, I would have done it in a heartbeat. I just didn't know.
I think the takeaway is that the ideal experience, take out the bidding process and all this other stuff, is to have a design team early in the process, which includes typically an architect, hopefully the builder, if the builder's already been contracted, your integrator, and if there's a mechanical, electrical, or plumbing engineer somewhere in that too.
So it's, a lot of it sounds like, it should start with the architect. And as a builder, if the architect didn't bring these things to the table, what should the builder do? How does the builder communicate to the homeowner that we should start doing this, right? I mean, how's that work?
What I would probably say is, first of all, I agree with you that over the course of our firm's history, the best projects that we've worked on were always projects that had the builder as part of the team at the very beginning, and this was a similar experience. So I've worked in design build scenarios before, worked for contractors, so I understand the benefits that come with that, and I always, every time, try and get the client to assemble a team. It's the first best thing I try and tell them. But when that doesn't happen, I think the takeaways that I get from all of this are, frankly, the architects just need to be, A, more courageous about being okay to talk about tech, even if it's a scary budget topic. And second of all, don't pretend that you have to know it all. Don't be the person, like Sean was saying, if nobody is making decisions, if we don't have a builder, we don't have an integrator yet, the architect shouldn't be saying to themselves, well, I guess I'm gonna have to do it, because they don't know what they're doing. They just don't know what they're doing. And they need to be open, with themselves and I think with the industry, and say, we need help with this. And even if we need to go hire an integrator and pay an integrator independently because we don't have a contractor on the job yet, just to get the numbers in, do it. Just do it. It takes courage, and it's a difficult thing in my profession. I see a lot of cases where people are just afraid, to A, give up power, and B, to be the one holding the bag when all of the money talk happens.
So technology design is an evolving concept. In essence, your architect is a designer, and he's contracted or she's contracted to do the design. Your interior designers work similarly, lighting designers. What's the conversation to get a design up front before you actually choose an installer? I mean, what's the value of that?
So it's actually interesting how the industry's changed in the last couple of years, and I think lighting has been driving a lot of that change. Bravis has a full design and engineering department, so we do offer upfront design and engineering services. We're a little selfish because we anticipate or expect that business is going to come our way once we complete that design. But it doesn't always, right? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you only buy some of what we've recommended. But that's a great foray into that conversation. And there's a lot of companies I'm finding popping up across the country now that are not part of Bravis, that are just guys who are in the industry or that are engineers or designers from the commercial trades.
Who just do design.
Who just do design. So just like you'd find a lighting designer, you'll find a tech design group. And they don't install anything, they don't service anything, they generate the plans. They work with the homeowner, they come up with the designs. Just like an architect would, and it goes out to a contractor for bidding and installation. And I think if that approach is done properly, some of the cost for the integrator comes out because the integrator is no longer designing anymore. They're no longer, writing up parts lists. If somebody came to me and handed me a completed design to just install this, it'd be a whole lot less expensive for me to do that than to take my design team and apply them to it and figure it out.
Yeah. Sarah, what were some of the technology? What technologies were most eye-opening or notable that were introduced to you?
Yeah, I think the lighting really blew my mind. I mean, there was just so much around, and it all made sense when everything was presented to me, from AV to lighting, to have all one system in one place. I was like, okay, that, again, there's an investment in that, but it's worth it, right? Like, that to me made, to have one central sort of system. But I think lighting was probably the biggest, most eye-opening, and I remember having this conversation with Vince, and complimentary kudos to him, because he did in the beginning when we sat down. He's like, I really think you need to get your team together. Like, you made that a priority, and we did do that. And I remember you saying, like, lighting is and can be very expensive, and there are a lot of different options. And so I was really blown away by, and again, just sort of the detail around. It's not you just throw up a bunch of schlocky lights and pray for the best. It's like there's actually like a lot of design and consideration into lighting, and that's really was important to me. So that was something I think Sean has been super helpful with.